The Rams have made their selection. See if it's time.
With the sixth pick in the first round obtained from the Redskins, the St. Louis Rams select Lawrence Phillips, running back, Nebraska. The New England Patriots are next on the clock.
Now, so Georgia Francieri and the Rams played poker. They stood pat. They knew when to hold him. They decided not to fold him, didn't have to make a move. And they're paying him number 6 money as opposed to number 2 or number 3 money. And that's the guy they wanted all along. So I would got to think that the St. Louis Rams extraordinarily happy. It's worked out. You still wouldn't do this, Mel, if you were the Rams.
No way. No. I think Lawrence Phillips is a good pick here. I think, as we've said, and most people have conceded, take the problems off the field away. Everybody's called him the best player in the draft. You have to sooner or later let the talent go. This is not a league of angels. There are people that have had problems, but they've gotten over them. I think this is a young man who will put this behind him and be a better football player. When you look at the quarterback need for the Rams, Steve Walsh or Randall Cunningham had to be the obvious choice because there really weren't many people out there. I think what Rich Brooks is looking for, the quarterback position is a position today where you don't lose football games, not necessarily win them. I think Steve Walsh fits in there perfectly. I think they're going to count on their defense to make plays. They're going to count on their offense to control the game. That guarantees you almost 9 wins today,
Joe. This is not the only running back in this draft.
No, but he's considered the best.
Well, he's considered. Are you evaluating him in totality?
Yes.
Okay.
I am. I am. I've evaluated him in totality.
Now, if he would have had a major reconstructive knee surgery, we would have factored that in.
But that's physical.
Okay. Well,
that's
I'm looking
the physical
at everything,
aspect of it. I mean, the mental aspect, I believe, is behind him. Everybody else, I think, is trying to say, don't do this because of his character.
Joe, that's a fact.
It is a fact, but it's also something that I think will be behind him.
Well, we'll see. I mean, we can argue this,
UNL City, we can do that.
We can do that all
about
night.
10 hours.
In the National Football League and in sports generally, the death of Brook Berringer, the University of Nebraska quarterback who lost his life this week in an airplane accident. I would ask you to join us in a moment of silence. Thank you.
Tommie Frazier, he led his team to back-to-back national championships. Big 8 player of the year, could very well go undrafted today. Here's his college coach on Tommie Frazier of Nebraska.
I think he's a great talent. I think he should play quarterback. If I were starting an NFL team, I would take Tommie Frazier, partly because of his athleticism, but also partly simply because of his makeup. You know, he's a guy that wins. He's a guy that is a great competitor. And he went out to the East-West game, for instance, an entirely different system, primarily a drop-back system, was named the outstanding player of the game. And most people would say, well, he's not that kind of quarterback, but he can be, and I'll promise you he can win.
So many questions. There are health questions, which we'll get into in a second. There are quarterback questions. Or is he another position? Is he a potential Cordell Stewart? As you look at that unbelievable offensive resume, all the numbers add up to winner, the bottom line on Tommie Frazier. So, Jerry, now the medical questions become, after this second clot, how is Tommie Frazier doing right now? And then what is his status in regard to taking these blood thinners that could very well be a part of his life?
Well, they put him back on the Coumadin. He's actually in the hospital 10 days, Michael, at Bryan Memorial there in Lincoln. He lost quite a bit of weight, but they put him back on the Coumadin therapy. And what Tommie would like to see happen is to leave him on the Coumadin for 3 months. Try to give it a 3-month trial. They know it worked the first time, and they have dissolved quite a bit of the clot. There is some clot still residual behind his right knee, but otherwise most of the clot is gone. Now, if he were to stay on for 3 months, that means he would come off the Coumadin in the middle of May and reevaluate then. But as far as physically he's concerned, I talked to Tommie a day or so ago. He is running, he is lifting weights, he's playing basketball. His weight is back up over 205 pounds. He may be in the best physical shape he has been in a long time.
Jerry, let's break this down to the specifics for today's NFL draft. Forgetting football reasons, just health reasons. I'm an NFL general manager. You're a doctor who's advising me a little bit. Just in general terms, somebody has a blood clot the first time it gets treated. Then if that clot reoccurs, are we talking about an increase in the probability that this may be a problem down the line for the individual?
You know, medicine is a lot like law, Michael. You know, you always want, if you have a tough case, you want to go back and look through the law books to see where the precedents have been set and what decision was made prior to that. If you research the literature, and I spoke with Tommie's cardiovascular surgeon, Deepak Gangahar in Lincoln, Nebraska, and they've researched it. They've gone to the Mayo Clinic, they've gone to Johns Hopkins, they've gone to England to try to get information, and they can find no precedent set as far as what to do. No previous young athlete in college or the NFL has had a similar kind of clot and had it dissolved and gone on to play football. So he's sort of a guinea pig in that regard. But if you look at the precedents that are in the literature, Dr. Gangahar said the first clot, the likelihood of recurrence, 15 to 20%. When the second clot occurs, the likelihood of recurrence is 20 to 30%. But for Tommie Frazier, remember, he's already beaten the odds once and come back and played an entire year with no problems.
A medical question, which we'll talk about with Mike Lombardi in a second. But first of all, Mike Gottfried, the quarterback issue. You did broadcast the East-West Shrine game, the game that Tom Osborne referred to when Frazier was the MVP, did run a drop-back passing offense and succeeded in that. You're convinced he can do the same in the NFL?
Yeah, I'm convinced he can. First of all, let's put it this way. You know, I disagree with all those guys who say that he can't play quarterback. There's 30 quarterbacks starting in the NFL. There's 90 quarterbacks on rosters, and there's a lot of stiffs out there, a lot of stiffs starting. So first of all, there aren't a lot of good quarterbacks in the pros. And we look at the draft. There's sure not a lot of good quarterbacks. Now, let's take a look at Tommie Frazier. He won in high school at Bradenton Manatee High School. He was Big 8 Freshman of the Year. He won 33 career wins at Nebraska. Now you look at him here. Play action quarterback, fakes the play action, gets hit, shows you his strength, able to get the ball away for a completion in that ball game. East-West ball game, you talk about accuracy, you talk about touch. All-star game, looks pretty good to me here, delivering the football, the outside. Lower body, and here's where I think, Chris, even if you miss on him as a quarterback, you got a running back, guy with great lower body strength. Now, that's if everything's well medically. But when you look at Tommie Frazier, all you see is a winner and a guy that's productive. So, I mean, there aren't a lot of guys like that around. 43 passing touchdowns at Nebraska, 36 rushing TDs. He wins 33 career start wins. How can you beat that? I mean, how can you argue with that?
I know you're willing to stand on the table for him. You're right, though, about the strength. Unless you watch him play from field level or try to tackle him, you can't appreciate the strength of Tommie Frazier. But Mike Lombardi, having said all that, and let's say you even believe, Mike Gottfried, that he can play quarterback in the NFL, and you'll give us a list later, Mike, of all the stiffs who are playing quarterback, by the way, in the league. Let's say you believe he can play quarterback. Aren't there still serious medical risks? And let's say you were in that position, your job, your reputation could be on the line if you select Tommie Frazier and he doesn't work out.
Well, the NFL has rules for this situation. It's called the non-football related injury, which this would be because it didn't happen under the club's jurisdiction. So if some club were to select him, they would place him on the NFI list at the beginning of training camp. At that point, they could pay him any salary that they could agree upon. It would be below the minimum salary. He could attend meetings. He could be with the team. He could not practice. So that would be an opportunity for the club to take a look at him, have him go to meetings at a very minimal expense.
So he's on the NFI non-football injury list, but do you take a selection here in round 4, 5, 6, or 7 for a guy that you know is going to be on that NFI list, or is that too big a gamble?
I think at this point probably there's some other players clubs would like more than Tommie because of these circumstances, yes.
All right, certainly a healthy debate.
Here are some pretty well-known names, their opinions on Tommie Frazier.
Tommie Frazier, I think, is a quarterback.
I see Tommie as a running back principally.
I see him with his athletic ability being a safety.
There's a lot of things on the football field, in today's football, he can do. In the short yardage, goal line, two-point conversions, as a change of pace type of quarterback as he's learning the game of football. Tommie's really blessed with a lot of talent, and he really has the belief in his mind, and that's the most important thing, that he is a quarterback.
The draft question made this a bittersweet weekend for Tommie Frazier anyway. This was the weekend they were going to honor the national championship team at Nebraska at the spring game yesterday and retire Tommie Frazier's number 15. A record crowd showed up at the spring game, but the celebration of the championship was put off. As many of you know, Brook Berringer was killed in a tragic plane accident this past week. So what was going to be a bittersweet weekend for Frazier and the rest of the Nebraska team regarding their championship celebration and the draft status certainly was all put in the background with the Brook Berringer passing, and their thoughts more on that than anything else that was going on in Lincoln this week.